making connections, which is this idea of the three spheres, as I understand. Also the possibility of observing the subtleties of applying this work with special needs, and these things that you're discovering, how the parents are slightly more involved, slightly more vulnerable maybe too, because they have this role of being parents and therapists. How do we accompany that? So those things are the diamonds, I think, of making connections, is what maybe you are addressing, as I understand.
We try to look at all the connections, like the network or the field of connections a child is in, and we believe that in the relationships, it's not in the individual person where the change needs to happen, but in the relationship, in the relational field between the child and the mother, the father, the caregivers, the grandmother, the maybe the siblings, or a dog or a cat. It's a so they to see it in a much bigger context.
For me, it's also a lot of like focus on parents, how to bring a little bit more comfort to the situation, and maybe just to feel, oh, I am very important, and my child, and what we know together, or what the family brings. So to put the attention to that, what is already happening, and to develop that further, and not to be so much influenced from the outside and from the directions.
So, so making connection in that sense is, of course, how we can make connections between movement and the brain. How we can change something in an ability of a child, but that without the context of who is caring for the child, and who is caring for the one who is caring, and how this all needs to work together to learn from the situation, and participate in this learning process. That's what is making connections, from the micro movements, from moving a finger or moving a body part, or making connection with the movement of the arm and the shoulder or the hip joint, to the connection with the mother or father or caregiver, to connection to space, to objects. So from the micro to the macro. If we observe the movement of the child, I think there are many aspects of making connections, which can which we can see where is a missing connection in the movement of the child, where is something we can support, where is a pattern to kind of carve out, and where there are maybe patterns or habits which are not so functional, not so useful. So I think this idea of making connections applies also very much also to the organization, the orientation of the child with special needs in space, or in relation to itself, to gravity, the movement of the head, the movement of the ankles. I mean, there are so many details which play into this whole uh,
Yeah.
movement organization. And it's just the idea of the project, or this of making connection, extends from the mini connections in the body to the connections into the environment, into the space.
For me, it's also a lot of like focus on parents, how to um, bring a little bit more comfort to the situation, and maybe just to feel, oh, I am very important, and my child, and what we know together, or what the family brings. Uh, so to put the attention to that, what is already happening, and to develop that further, and not to be so much influenced from the outside and from the directions.
How what we do is different and what's at the base of that difference, and how do we attune through listening, this attunement happening through listening, and this listening that is really um, um, subtle and open in all these many directions and dimensions. And then you were mentioning something about the attunement being circular, and I really like this idea, you know, how we can change this one direction from this circularity in the direction of attunement and listening. So there is something that is circling and is gathering information, and is constantly traveling from the child to the parents to the larger system to the community and back to the micro level, micro level.
I'm also thinking a lot about like how to bring this idea of like the continuity, also the continuity of the development, maybe also with children with special needs, a little like really slowing down and maybe breaking down the details or into even more details than usually, which for me is a fascinating learning environment. What are the elements of some, you know, kind of pathways? But also I'm thinking a lot about like bringing to the family the kind of feeling of not separating things, like that everything is actually happening all the time. So there is not the therapy and at home and, you know, we are together and but then we have to do the therapy. But actually everything, like, yeah, everything what we do is part of our development.
I would say that maybe one of the biggest resources when you work with a child are the parents, because after a very short time, when when the first shock of maybe a difficult birth or medical interventions or whatever, like when this first shock is kind of a bit away, the parents often they start to gather information in an incredible way, and they're looking for different approaches, and they became really experts of their child, because they don't trust just one. Often they don't trust just one resource, but they checking out different resources, different therapies, and then after a very short time they are experts for their child, and it's really, I think you miss a lot if you don't ask the parents about their child, if you don't include them in this whole process. It's
Mm.
besides that, the parents are with the child the whole time. So I think one thing um, we would like to bring is like a change in quality, not only a change in what you do or what the parents do with the child, but also how they do it. Sometimes it's not even, sometimes I see like a physical therapist or other therapists do similar things than we do, but the big difference is how we do it, with what quality we are taking the child, we are touching the child, we're moving the child. I think that's a very important aspect
Mm.
of our work. And so making connection means also how is the connection between me and the child, the parents, the caregivers with the child. How am I affected by the child? How the parents can learn that they also can let the child initiate and be affected. So there is the connection is like bidirectional or multi-directional. It's not just I do something with the child, or the child cries and I get stressed, or often it's seen like there's a cause and an effect, and it's just in one direction, and then I react, and it's. But how can we see that it's like more diffused, and there is not like one center, but there is so many, this web is, like you said, Patricia, the web is so multidimensional, and there can things emerging here and emerging there, and there's an ability forming here, or a new skill added here, and so that it's quite malleable in the way, and that actually is what neuroplasticity is about. It's not about reinforcing one pathway, but it's like to bring learning to the whole network, so the whole interconnected system can change in some way and learn something new, new ability.
Also, what I feel is very kind of interesting. Usually the parents are facing this with the other therapists or medical doctors, like, oh, the child is not doing this, and still it's not doing this. So the focus is a lot on what the child is not doing. But for me, it's really fascinating to kind of see what the child is doing, and then to ask parents, oh, I see this, and maybe just to ask more questions, but also to teach the parents to see those small steps the child is doing, and maybe the small changes. Because my experience is that sometimes the parents like say, oh, I said, oh, what's new? Nothing is new. And then we look together, and then we see, oh, this, oh, look, the child now is doing this and this. And I think that's very, very, very supportive for the parents. Maybe also for this, what we were talking about, opening up to the space. So observation, but also like acknowledging and appreciating what the child is doing, and where the child is on that journey to whenever he or she can go.
Children with special needs don't move as much as other children. Like when you watch a baby in 1 minute, it moves incredible. It does incredible movement all the time. It's like self-stimulating. It gets feedback. There's so much learning happening in just a few minutes. For a child with special needs, it's usually completely different. So this limitation prevents them from a learning process, and so you need to take them to this learning edge, like when you say these two things, so acknowledging what is there. But if you stay with what is there, it's very difficult to learn something new, because it's already in its limitations there, and the parents often adapt to that. I mean, and that's very good, because you cannot force the child all the time to do something it cannot do. So the environment also adapts to the child, to the needs of the special needs of the child. But then you also need to take the child to an edge where there is something new to learn. So it's a bit out of the comfort.
In this sense, I'm also like thinking about the parent being very active part of environment. And sometimes parent is maybe in the role of environment, sometimes is in the role of the child, somehow like also kind of allowing the child experience something what the child cannot experience herself or himself. And also, so then what I feel we can also bring is like, what is this environment? Is it kind of the furniture which is squared, or the environment, has many different possibilities to or slow down and, be a little faster or rounder or kind of more firm. So all those choices we have, and we can also bring to the child to experience.
As you were moving, Anka, I couldn't stop help thinking about tone and matching tone, and that you giving these different ways of relating to the environment. And I was thinking about this aspect of how do we meet the tone, and we start the dialogue from where the child and the family is, and we offer new possibilities for experiencing tonic relationships with self and others. So with my own body, if I can experience as a parent a different relationship with my own body and a different tone in relating to the earth, then I can hold my baby in a different way. I can start opening new tonic relationships that obviously affect my own relationship with myself and my environment, and therefore the relationship with the child, and the same with the child. If the child can experience a different tonic relationship with itself, with the earth, with the environment, then there's all these possibilities merging. And I was just thinking about that sophistication, because when we talk about tone, then we can talk about tone in a very general way, but then we can be very detailed about where, at what level we experience and listen to tone.
I think we all have different ways how we deal with the matching or not matching the tone, or asking, maybe some therapists are asking the parents to match the therapist's tone, right? So what are the different matching of the tones? I think for me, it's a lot about trying to see where they are, and how can I react? What is my response? And lately, I found this great tool I'm using a lot, and it's really sounding. It's the tone. Uh, uh, the tone and sounding, which kind of like brings to the space the vibration, and I feel it's much easier to, especially the children, kind of catch this tonal, the sounding, and the and it's much easier than to swim in the space together.